my sister said. No one even wants you here, you're always causing problems. So I quietly left. Now everyone's asking where I am after what happened this morning. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look back. I just stood up, pushed in my chair, and left. It was supposed to be a celebration, Dad's 60th birthday. The backyard was strung up with lights, folding tables groaning under the weight of food none of them paid for but all of them took credit for. I grilled the meat, helped Mom with the setup, paid for the decorations because money's tight. Again. And like always, nobody thanked me. They just expected it. Like the sun rising. Like me being the family doormat. Then came the moment. The one that will stick with me forever. We were standing by the patio when Rachel, my sister, the golden child since birth, snapped. Everyone was buzzed, laughter floating through the air, when she spun toward me, face scrunched, voice cutting through the evening like broken glass. No one even wants you here. You're always causing problems. Silence. Even the music stopped for a beat. My mother looked down at her drink. My father muttered something about, "Not today," like I was the one who picked this fight. My older brother sighed, long and theatrical, like here we go again. And nobody, not one of them, said a word in my defense. So I left. Not in anger. Not in tears. Just quietly. But before I walked out, I tapped a button on my phone. A single, subtle move that would set in motion a storm none of them saw coming. I'd had that plan in my back pocket for months. And this was the night I chose to use it. The silence in my car was louder than anything I'd left behind. I didn't blast the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just drove, nowhere in particular. I wasn't running away. I was stepping away. For the first time in my life, I wasn't begging to be understood or loved by people who'd made it clear, again and again, that I was nothing more than a utility. I parked in the lot of an old diner off the highway, the kind of place that smells like burnt coffee and lost time. I ordered a black coffee I didn't drink and opened my laptop. At midnight the first email went out. To my parents. Subject, just so you know. Attached was a carefully compiled PDF, screenshots of texts Rachel had sent me over the past few years, mocking Mom's anxiety behind her back, calling Dad a pathetic failure when she didn't get her way. A screen recording of her bragging to one of her friends on a voice message that she always gets away with stuff. Because Mom and Dad are too stupid to know what's going on. There was even a recording from 2 years ago, Rachel lying about me missing Grandma's funeral to cover for herself because she had gone on a weekend trip with her boyfriend. I had attended the funeral alone, while she posted beach pictures with captions like, "Family first." They weren't doctored. They weren't exaggerated. They were just the truth. I knew my parents wouldn't believe me unless it came from her mouth, or her keyboard. And now they had it. That was just the first domino. By morning, I had over 30 unread messages. My phone lit up like it was on fire. First was Dad. A missed call. Then a voicemail, his voice hoarse and confused. "What the hell is this, Nathan? What are these files? Why would you do this to your sister?" Then came Mom. 2 texts in a row. "Call me right now. Please, Nathan. I need to understand what's going on." I didn't respond. Because while they were just starting to panic, I was already 10 steps ahead. That morning's scheduled emails had just finished deploying. I had split them like a chessboard, each one with exactly what needed to be seen by the right person, at the right time. To my Uncle Jeff, Dad's older brother and the family's go-to moral compass, I sent recordings from last year's Christmas. Rachel had stolen money from our parents' emergency fund, then lied about it, saying I must have taken it. Mom and Dad believed her. I was never invited back to the house after that day. In the audio clip, she laughs while telling her friend, "I just blamed Nate. They always think it's him anyway." To my cousin Becca, the only family member who ever treated me like a person, I sent the screenshots of group texts where Rachel made fun of her weight, her job, her fiancé. To her face, Rachel had played bridesmaid of the year. Behind her back? Vicious. To my mother's church friend, the one who'd once told me she always admired how close our family seemed. A 10-minute audio montage, conversations where Rachel mocked the church, called the congregation boring losers, and said Mom only played pious so people would forget she was a nobody in high school. Every email was titled, "You deserve to know." This wasn't revenge. Not really. It was the truth, delivered without the usual noise. No arguments. No confrontations. Just facts, raw, ugly, undeniable. And Rachel? She didn't know yet. But her kingdom was already burning. At 9:32 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Rachel. What did you do? Why is everyone calling me? I swear to God if you don't answer. I didn't open them. I just scrolled past and looked at the last message I'd scheduled for that morning, one that went out to our family group chat at exactly 9:45 a.m. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a rant. It was one line. I didn't leave because I was tired of fighting. I left because I was done pretending this was ever a family. Then I turned my phone off. And sat back. And waited. By noon, I had 17 voicemails. I didn't listen to a single one. But I could guess the contents based on the sequence of missed calls. First came my mother, then my father. Then a cluster of relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. By the time the group chat had devolved into what could only be described as a civil war, I was sitting in a coffee shop across town, sipping a cappuccino like a man who had just buried something heavy and sacred in the woods. Because that's what it felt like. Rachel had always been good at creating a version of herself for every person. Sweet and innocent for the aunts. Grateful and successful for our parents. Bold and outspoken for her friends. The golden daughter, the perfect child. And me? I was the counterbalance. The scapegoat. The difficult one. The one who was too sensitive, too intense, too much. But now they were seeing what I'd seen since we were kids. I scrolled through the group chat, which I had muted but not exited. My Uncle Jeff had already called Rachel's behavior deeply disturbing. Becca, my cousin, had left the chat entirely after posting, "I never want to speak to you again. Don't show up to my wedding." My mom, ever the peacekeeper, was now fraying at the edges. "This doesn't define our family. We all make mistakes. Let's not destroy ourselves over one bad night." But it wasn't one night. It was years. And they were just realizing that now. Rachel, meanwhile, had posted a wall of text, oscillating between denial and self-pity. "It's all out of context. Nathan hates me. He's always hated me. He's mentally unstable, and this is just him lashing out because we finally stood up to him." But no one was buying it. Not anymore. Kevin, her husband, hadn't said a word. Not in the group. Not anywhere. But privately? He had. The only message I opened that day came from him. "Kevin, I don't know what to say. I've suspected for a while, but I didn't want to see it. I'm sorry you went through all this. I'm sorry I didn't say anything at dinner. I was scared. But I'm not anymore. She needs help. And I'm done covering for her." That was the first apology I'd gotten in years. And strangely, it didn't feel vindicating. It felt hollow. Because it didn't undo the decades of dismissal. Of being the one who was always too angry, too selfish, too dramatic, just because I didn't lie. This wasn't about Rachel anymore. Not really. This was about the whole damn system. And I wasn't going back. By the evening, they weren't texting to explain anymore. They were texting to beg. The tone had shifted. Gone were the accusations, the passive-aggressive jabs, the condescending reassurances that I was just overreacting. Now it was, "Please call us. We just want to talk. We didn't realize how much you were holding in. Let's fix this." But I didn't want to fix it. I wanted them to feel it. The same ache I'd lived with my entire life, being spoken around but never to. Being used for my time, my money, my silence. I had spent years being the invisible glue holding everything together from the shadows. And when anything cracked, they looked at me like I'd snapped the bone on purpose. They never understood that every quiet moment from me wasn't passivity. It was restraint. Until now. I booked a cabin that night, 3 hours north, at the edge of a lake, no cell service, no Wi-Fi. It was a place I'd discovered years ago and dreamed of escaping to every time a family dinner left me emotionally gutted. I packed light. Left my phone in a drawer. Took a notebook and some old letters I had never opened from a friend who had passed away. Letters I had always been too busy to sit with. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't text a single soul. And the next morning, while they were still frantically calling each other, scrambling to make sense of a world where I wasn't within reach to blame, I watched the sun rise over the still water, for once, without a knot in my chest. And in that silence, in the thick hush of nature without reception, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not peace, not yet. But power. Real, unshakable power, not from yelling, not from confrontation, but from absence. The kind of power that only comes when the person they took for granted finally walks away, and they realize, he's not coming back. I stayed off-grid for 3 days. No signal, no inbox. Just pages of a weather journal filling up with words I didn't know I'd been carrying. I wrote like I was unlearning everything they'd etched into me, that my worth was conditional, that being needed was the same as being loved, that staying quiet was the price of keeping the peace. But there was another reason I went dark. There was one final wave of messages scheduled to hit while I was gone. The kind you don't send while standing in the middle of the blast zone. This round wasn't emotional. It was logistical. Bank transfers? Cancelled. The family savings account, yes, the one I had been quietly contributing to, the one Mom used. Just in case. Drained. Legally mine. I'd set it up, after all. They didn't even realize I was the primary. Rachel's graduate tuition loan? I'd co-signed it. Her perfect little plan to get her master's degree with my credit and her lies? Revoked. She'd have to reapply. With her own name. Dad's new business venture? I'd helped him incorporate under my LLC as a favor, last year. Big mistake, for him. I filed the dissolution papers right before heading out. By the time I came back, it would be a ghost. Every helping hand they'd taken for granted was gone. And no one knew yet. I imagined their panic like a fog descending over the house. Rachel checking her financial portal and seeing the rejection notice. Mom trying to refill a prescription with a card that no longer worked. Dad calling his lawyer in a huff, only to find out he no longer had legal access to the company name he bragged about last Thanksgiving. Let them feel what it's like when the scapegoat finally steps off the altar. When I came back into range on day 4, I turned my phone on expecting the usual chaos. But I didn't expect her. My cousin Marissa. She was the only one who'd ever pulled me aside at family reunions and said, "You okay?" in a way that felt real. She wasn't close with Rachel, didn't buy the Golden Child Act. Still, I hadn't heard from her in over a year. But now, her message was waiting. Marissa. I got the email. I read every word. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I knew something was wrong. I saw it. But I stayed out of it because I didn't want drama. That was cowardly. You didn't deserve any of it. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. And I mean it. It was the only message I replied to. Me. Thank you? I think I just needed someone, anyone, to say that. That was the beginning of something new. Not a reconciliation. Not a reunion. But the slow, tentative planting of something I hadn't had in years. Respect. From someone in the wreckage, who had chosen to see me. I didn't go home. Not back to their definition of home, at least. I extended my cabin stay by another week, using money I would have sent to my parents' mortgage, had things been the way they used to be. It felt almost poetic, paying for my peace with the same funds they once drained from me without a second thought. I checked my email once a day. Not because I was curious. Because I wanted to witness the unraveling. To see if they'd finally say what they never could when I was in the room. I'm sorry. You were right. We were wrong. But that's not what I got. Not at first. Mom's emails were the same brand of emotional blackmail wrapped in faux concern. Nathan, I don't recognize you anymore. This isn't you. You've always been the good one. Your sister is in a bad place right now. She's crying. Can't eat. You need to stop this. Stop what exactly? Telling the truth? Refusing to be used? My father wrote just once, short, cold, typed like a work memo. You've made your point. You've humiliated your family. I hope you're proud of yourself. I was. But more than proud, I was free. And Rachel? She sent me the most revealing message of them all. No apology. No anger. No lies. Just one line. You ruined everything. And in that moment I knew I had succeeded. Because for people like her, like them, truth is ruin. Exposure is betrayal. Silence, on my part, had been mistaken for permission for years. Now that I was silent by choice, it wasn't peace to them. It was threat. I didn't need to say anything else. The messages, the documents, the proof, they'd already rewritten the narrative they had scripted me out of long ago. Now, finally, they were the ones left out in the cold. Not by vengeance. But by absence. The kind they couldn't control. The kind they couldn't guilt their way around. The kind they feared most. I was back in the city by the time the mask finally slipped. My inbox, once flooded with demands and guilt-drenched pleas, had gone strangely quiet. A kind of eerie silence settled over everything, like the calm right before the sky rips open. I knew something was coming, I just didn't know when. It happened a few nights after I returned. I was out walking through a quiet neighborhood park, my phone finally back on, the world buzzing again. I hadn't told anyone where I'd been. I hadn't answered a single call, not even Marissa's follow-up message. I needed distance. Clarity. Then, a name lit up my screen. Rachel. I almost let it ring out. Almost. But something told me to pick up. Not out of curiosity, out of strategy. I answered and said nothing. For 10 seconds neither did she. Then she spoke, and the voice that came through didn't belong to the queen of the family. Not the polished, perfect, manipulative performer everyone else knew. It was raw. Ragged. Real. You don't get it, do you? I stayed silent. You think this was just about Mom and Dad picking me? About me getting everything. But I never asked to be the favorite, Nathan. They made me that way. I almost laughed. Almost. Because I had seen this move before, just never directed at me. They turned me into this person. Every time I lied, they looked the other way. Every time I messed up, they made it your fault. And now they're looking at me like I destroyed the family. Like I'm the monster. And you. She trailed off. I waited. You're the victim. Again. That's when I finally spoke. My voice was low. Even. Controlled. No, Rachel. I'm not the victim. Not anymore. I stopped playing that part the night you told me I didn't belong. There was silence on the line. Then, softly, almost like she didn't mean to say it aloud. I didn't think you'd actually leave. And that was it. The whole truth. The one she couldn't hide behind performance. She had built her entire identity on the assumption that I'd always stay. That I'd always come back. That no matter what she said or did, I'd be the same Nathan I'd always been, quiet, forgiving, desperate for scraps of approval. She didn't just lose her scapegoat. She lost the mirror she used to feel clean. I hung up without another word. Not out of pettiness. Out of mercy. Because I finally understood, Rachel wasn't angry that I exposed her. She was terrified that I had stopped needing her to believe I was good. She was cracking not because she lost control of the family, but because she lost control of me. And for the first time in her life, Rachel had no one else to blame. The Sunday after that call felt strange. Too still. Like the air was waiting for something to break. I took a walk through the neighborhood where I'd grown up, not to feel nostalgic, but to remind myself just how long I had stayed quiet. Every sidewalk crack, every worn tree swing, every rusted mailbox on those familiar streets felt like a receipt for years I had overpaid in silence. Then my phone vibrated. Aunt Lily. I hadn't heard from her in years. She was my mother's older sister, the only one who used to pull me aside when I was little and slip me an extra cookie because you always get the short end, don't you, Nathan? I heard everything, she said, voice tight, careful. Heard what exactly? About the emails. The recordings. The money. Your parents, they're not taking it well. I nearly smiled. Not out of joy. Out of relief that someone was willing to say it plainly. They've asked me to talk to you, she added. They want to have a sit-down. As a family. I stopped walking. Because this was the stage they never admitted to. The funeral phase, when the old myth finally dies, and all they have left are performances, carefully scripted reconciliations designed to restore the status quo. Not because they're sorry, but because the lie isn't sustainable anymore. Aunt Lily, let me ask you something. Of course. Where were you when I was paying their bills? When they let Rachel blame me for everything? When I was being called selfish for not giving more? There was a long pause. I didn't know how bad it was, she said quietly. You did. You just didn't want to be the one to say it. Another silence. Then, what should I tell them? Tell them the seat at my table is empty. And it's going to stay that way. I hung up. And this time, I didn't feel a pang of doubt or guilt. I felt something better. Finality. Because that sit-down they were hoping for? It wasn't about healing. It was about resetting. It was about returning me to the role I had played so well, the dependable son, the scapegoat, the bank, the one who'd keep the lights on even while being shut out of the room. They weren't mourning what they did to me. They were mourning the consequences. Later that night, I got an email from Dad. The subject line: Let's move forward. The body of the message was exactly what you'd expect. We've all said things we didn't mean. Your sister has had a hard year. Your mother is sick with stress. Can't we put this behind us? We are family, after all. Blood is thicker than water. I read it 3 times. Then I opened my drafts folder, the one with an unsent message I'd written nearly a year ago after they blamed me for Rachel missing Mom's birthday party. A message I never sent because I thought it would be too harsh. This time, I hit send. Blood is not an excuse. Family isn't measured by last names or shared DNA. It's measured by effort, by care, by the willingness to stand up for each other when it counts. You had years. I had enough. Don't reach out again. I didn't expect a reply. And I didn't get one. But I didn't need it. That message wasn't for them. It was for me. It was the headstone on the grave of the family I used to pretend I had.